Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We would also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. When I was much younger in middle school and high school and had to read poetry in English class, I dreaded it probably because I really didn't understand what I was reading. While I still don't quite understand a lot of poetry, in recent years I have taken a liking to it because I find using less words to communicate something that is enjoyable to me. That's why I'm happy to have Sid Ghosh join this episode to discuss his wonderful poetry, why RPM has been so helpful to him, and being the only AAC presenter at the United Nations World Down Syndrome Day event. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Sid, thanks so much for joining me here today on Autism Stories.
P-H-A-N-K. Thanks.
I wanted to start out and learn, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
My diagnosis with autism happened in my fourth year. Autism was my savior. Down syndrome community didn't have much for non-speakers like me. To find Soma was some miracle.
And I'll repeat that. My diagnosis with autism happened in my fourth year. Autism was my savior. The Down syndrome community did not have much for non-speakers like me. To find Soma, and this is Soma Mukhopadhyay of the rapid prompting method, was some miracle.
And Sid, you wrote a book last year made up of 34 short lyrics poems called Give a Book. I'm always fascinated with the naming of books. So, what does the title Give a Book mean to you?
Meanings could be chosen based on context. I think this was based on one of my poems. Give a book, bequeath of mind.
Meanings can be chosen based on context. I think this was based on one of my poems, Give a Book, Bequeath the Mind.
And from reading your poetry, you're obviously a very talented poet. What is it about short lyric poems that has inspired you to write poetry?
First, I don't believe that there are good or bad poets. I think I am just connected to the big mind. Short poems are quite easier to write with my poor motor skills. I also kind of like the wit possible through brevity.
And the last sentence says, I also kind of like the wit possible through brevity.
And how can our listeners learn more about your book and purchase it? Give a book.
Give a Book was, I'll answer that question. Give a Book was published by a publishing company, Push Press, and I will give you the link to this after this podcast. Maybe you can include it in the show notes. It's a small chapbook and it's accessible through their website. I'll send you the link.
Great. So, words, I imagine, are pretty important to poets. And I read one of your favorite words is kindred. When you think of kindred, what are some things that come to mind and that are meaningful to you, Sid?
Love. Respect. My soul siblings. Rivers of queer cheer. Hills to breathe underwater. Forests of ultraviolet, trees that will not quit the queer.
And I'll repeat that. Love, respect, my soul siblings, rivers of queer cheer, gills to breathe underwater, forests of ultraviolet trees that will not quit the queer.
Now, Sid, you mentioned earlier about Soma, and you communicate through the rapid prompting method. What is it about this particular method that's been so helpful to you?
Having a person who understood my body and its unique communication needs changed everything for me. Soma was that person. She unlocked my voice. RPM is key for super low motor people like me.
And the last sentence is RPM is key for super low motor people like me.
We all have a favorite way to communicate, and I read for you, hamming is your favorite way. So, what's your definition of hamming, and why does it bring you so much joy?
Hamming is not my favorite way. My favorite way to communicate is through poetry, because poetry can lift language.
Now, in 2020, you were a presenter at the United Nations World Down Syndrome Day virtual event. And from what I understand, we're the only AAC presenter at the event. What was your message to the UN?
I don't remember, but I would tell them now to include non-speakers in their efforts to build awareness.
Did you get that part?
Yes, I did. Now, we learn so much from life's experiences. So I'm wondering, 3 years later, well, I guess you kind of answered this question already, but maybe how would your message change, and how would, including non speakers, what does that look like for you?
I hope I don't have to say the same things then. Interesting to see how long it takes for Down syndrome organizations to accept non-speakers.
And when you think about accepting non speakers, what does that specifically mean to you, Sid?
What's that? S O M. Some U S I O N. Some inclusion. Keep moving. Would be. Some inclusion would be nice. Do you mean in conferences? Y E C A N. Yes, and M E S. Keep moving. MES. Keep moving, Sid, when you're ready. S A G R. Yes, and in messaging, I think he said.
So, Sid, I know we talked about your poetry earlier. What do you have, like, what do you hope to do with your poetry in the future? Do you have any future plans with your poetry that we can kind of expect?
Y E S. Yes. I am INTERES. I'm interested in keep going. Okay. Writing a story. I'm interested in writing a story.
Well, I will definitely will want to check that out, Sid. So I can't wait for that to happen. And really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining me.
YOU. Keep moving. HAV and E. You have gone to L E N G T. Lens. F O for R E S E A R. Use your finger if that's hard. C H. You've gone to Lens for research. Period. T H A N K. Thanks. F O for T H A T. You've gone to Lens for research. Thanks for that.
Absolutely. And I hope this is just the first of many conversations we have, Sid.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug, as well. And I agree that just your questions were really in depth. So thank you.
Thank you so much to Sid for the conversation. To learn more about Sid, please check out the link in the podcast description for this episode. At Autism Personal Coach, we provide customized coaching for autistics to help improve the quality of our lives. All of our coaches are either autistic or autistic selected for their commitment to trauma-informed and neurodiversity affirming strategies. They deeply understand burnout, sensory needs, executive functioning, and the importance of special interests. If you're interested in learning more about our coaching, please visit autismpersonalcoach.com for more information. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Autism Stories, and if you did, if you could tell a friend, foe, or anyone you know about it so they could have the same enjoyable and educational experience as you when listening to Autism Stories, it would be very much appreciated. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.